Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Israel, and this is Parashat, Toldot, Genesis 25:19 to 28:10. This is kind of a continuation from last week, and this one is called The Silent Hero. So in last week's Parsha, we introduced Rivka, the niece of Abraham, the wife of Isaac, and this week, the mother of Jacob and Esau. Well, last week we saw a beautiful spiritual love story handwritten by God from the creation of the world. This week's Parsha takes us to a heist, thriller type of drama, which at times can seem almost like a daytime soap opera, like Bold and the Beautiful or something like that. There's so much going on in this story, but as we go through the portion, I want you to notice one constant, and this is going to be our model, this is going to be our focus, this is our hero, and this hero is Rivka, our mother. So Genesis 25:19, and these are the generations of Isaac, the son of Abraham. Abraham begot Isaac. Ve'ele Toldot Yitzchak ben Avraham. Avraham olid et Yitzchak. Avraham. Okay, there's your tzaddik right there. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel the Aramean of Padan Aram, the sister of Laban, the Aramean, to himself for a wife. So let's ask the question here. Why did Rivka need this entire introduction? It would seem that this verse is about Isaac and the woman that he took. So if we cut out the middle part, we get, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah to himself for a wife. That tells the story. Isn't that enough? In another context, maybe. However, who is our hero? Who is the focus on? Well, the first verse was about Isaac. The second was actually about Rivka. So what does God include in the text? Her father, her brother, and where they were from. This is a way of showing us just how awesome Rivka is. I mean, last week, check this out. 1, we already learned that she commanded water, that she exhibited supernatural strength, that she had a heart for people and for animals, that she was an incredible hostess, that she was an incredibly respectful daughter, she possessed sight beyond sight, she was favored by God, the Shekhinah, and by men, and was woman enough to fill the shoes of the mother of all the matriarchs, Sarah. Rivka's absolutely amazing. And this verse points out something that if not for our sages, we would have missed it ever so easily. This verse shows us that she was a holy and righteous woman despite the fact that she was raised in a wicked area by a wicked idolatrous father and an evil black magic conjuring swindling brother. Do you see what God is doing right here? Not a single word in the Torah is out of place. We already know this. Just God elevated Rivka to a higher point than even we who read about her could have possibly imagined. This is why this was written. Despite the fact that all those around her were idol worshippers and corrupt human beings who did not follow the way of God, this woman, who did not receive an education anywhere else, overcame that on her own. Respect. It's a little bit of acknowledgement here. Yeah. So from last Parsha, we see the development of Rivka, her ascension from young maiden to a wise, bold, fearless woman of God. Mamish, bold and the beautiful. Now take all that good stuff and let's fast forward 19 years from the time that they got married. This is where our story begins. That's an additional 19 years inside the tent of Abraham, because again, Abraham is still alive at this point in the story. So remember, how Abraham basically can assist her in elevating her status. So at all the awesomeness, this happened even beforehand. An extra 19 years in the house of Abraham can do wonders for anybody. So our story begins with Rivka right here, and this is where she remains throughout the entire Parsha. This is how we knew her, and then she's here, and this is where she remains. So there's so much happening this week, but I personally fell in love with Rivka from Parashat Sarah that I would like to continue with her as the main focus of this week. So we're going to go through the events as they circle around her, primarily from her point of view. But again, always pay attention where she is and what she does. Now, everything that we just read right now, this is an answer to us all. What do I mean? What's the question here? The question is irrelevant because it's all about the answer anyway. The word answer in Hebrew is actually tshuva, which means also repentance. But it comes from the word lashuv, to return. But then how could it be implied that one who never knew God would return to God? How does one do tshuva if one does not know God? The answer will be given in proper Jewish fashion, in the form of a question. Do we all not originally come from God? We all come from the same place, and it is our goal in life to return, lashuv, to that place. So how could Rivka have all these incredible abilities? Were they given to her first and she used them in order to rise, to ascend? Or did she rise on her own and through the struggle she acquired these skills and then this favor? Since she was seeking the Lord as a child, she was always close to God, you see? She inquired, she took action, she commanded, she directed, and she prevented maybe one of the greatest travesties from taking place. And Isaac prayed to the Lord in the presence of his wife because she was barren, and the Lord accepted his prayer, and Rebekah his wife conceived. Vaye'ater Yitzchak la'Adonai lenochach ishto, ki akara hi, vaye'ater lo Adonai vataher Rivka ishto. So here we see something beautiful. A lot of beautiful things here. First and foremost, we see a husband and wife praying together, while the husband is doing his duty and interceding on his wife's behalf. This is the job of the husband, biblically speaking, while the job of the wife is to allow him to do so. Could Rivka not turn to God if she wanted? Of course she could. In fact, she does inquire of the Lord over the next few verses. But remember, she was not a meek or weak woman. She was strong, but she knew what she, as a woman of God and as a wife of a man of God, had to do. We all have our positions. There is an order to things. And when we live our lives according to the way God created things to be, there is a harmony. This is the order that I'm talking about. But when we do not, what do we have? We have chaos. And that's the difference, ladies and gentlemen, please listen up. This is the difference between a girl and a woman, and even more so, a godly woman in today's world. A girl needs a man to take care of her, while a woman allows him to do so. The more women assume the roles of men, the less men there will be out there. This is not identity politics. This is scripture. Just read it. Back to the book. Let's take another look. Why did it say, and Isaac prayed to the Lord because she was barren, and not because she was barren, Isaac prayed to the Lord? I'm going to give you yet another example of the importance of order. This goes to show us first and foremost that the reason she was barren to begin with was so that they could pray. This is something just about everyone takes for granted. Every single female, both human and animal, is naturally barren. We should know this by now, since we discussed only a couple of weeks ago that life is exclusively in the hands of God and no angel. This is not necessarily the natural way of things. There are angels that command nature, and then there is God that commands life and death. We take it for granted that we get pregnant, like, sure, obviously, it's natural. But it's not. It's a miracle. That's really what it is. Every single time a woman conceives, every single time an animal gives birth, every single time new life comes into this world, this is a miracle, and God had everything to do with it directly and personally. Every time a mother gives birth, it's God himself who opens her womb. We see this throughout the Bible, and God had mercy on her, and he opened her womb. God is the one that opens the womb. And this woman becomes then God-like, bringing forth life into the world. It's a bonding moment between God and the woman. So do you understand how birth elevates the status of every female? From woman to mother? The man helps a little bit too, but So the other thing to look at, of course, is the Hebrew. Because in Hebrew it actually doesn't say pray. You know what it says? It says vayater. He appealed. Isaac appealed to God on his wife's behalf. Just like an attorney in the court of law can challenge and appeal the ruling of the judge, in this case, God and his verdict of Rivka's womb not being open. And how do you think they did this? Let's check it out. And in the 59th year of the life of Isaac, the son of Abraham, Rebekah, his wife, was still barren in those days. Remember, this is why it mentions the son of Abraham, to know who his father is. This is called ichus, as in your lineage and the importance thereof. And Rebekah said unto Isaac, truly I have heard, my lord, that thy mother Sarah was barren in her days until my lord Abraham, thy father, prayed for her, and she conceived by him. Now therefore, stand up, pray thou also to God, and he will hear thy prayer, and remember us through his mercies. Look at her, she's telling him what's what. And Isaac answered his wife Rebekah, saying, Abraham has already prayed for me to God to multiply his seed. Now therefore this barrenness must proceed to us from thee. And Rebekah said unto him, but arise now, thou also, and pray that the Lord may hear thy prayer and grant me children. And Isaac hearkened to the words of his wife, and Isaac and his wife rose up and went to the land of Moriah to pray there and to seek the Lord. And when they had reached that place, what is that place? The very same place that Isaac gave his life. Right over there on the altar on Mount Moriah, because Isaac's like, this is where things go down. Now, why did they go to that place? This is what you call the scene of the crime. That's where they went back to. So, check out what it says. To pray there, at that place, Isaac stood up and prayed to the Lord on account of his wife because she was barren. Again, and Isaac said, O Lord, God of heaven and earth, whose goodness and mercies fill the earth, thou who didst take my father from his father's house and from his birthplace, and didst bring him unto this land, and didst say unto him, to thy seed will I give the land, and thou didst promise him, and didst declare unto him, I will multiply thy seed as the stars of the heaven, and as the sand of the sea. Now may thy words be verified, which thou didst speak unto my father. In other words, you said these things. I know you did. For thou art the Lord our God. Our eyes are towards thee to give us seed of men, as thou didst promise us. For thou art the Lord our God, and our eyes are directed toward thee only. Smart man. He knew what was up. What I tell you last week, your answer does not come from around here with other people. Your answer is only from there. And the Lord heard the prayer of Isaac, the son of Abraham, and the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. Boom. So this we just read from Jasher as compared to our Parsha. Verse 21 in the Parsha, and Isaac prayed to the Lord opposite his wife because she was barren, and the Lord accepted his prayer, and Rebekah his wife conceived. Now just one more thing I want to bring to you. Here's a little hint that our sages give us from this verse. Lenochach ishto, in the presence of his wife. There's a much deeper meaning here. Ishto is the same numerical value as esh vekash, fire and straw. Ishto aleph shin taf vav. Aleph shin is, there's your esh, and the taf is basically 400. Kuf and shin, kuf is 100, shin is 300, and the vav is the same. Therefore, same numerical value. He prayed in regards to fire and straw. What is the fire and straw? This is before, again, she even conceived, meaning that the house of Jacob, which is fire, will consume the house of Esav, which is straw. Meaning that these two have already been predestined before the conception itself. Now we know that this is how things work. And that is what Isaac saw. That's exactly what he saw, because he was on a different plane. Now, again, you're going to see Isaac kind of passive in this Parsha, but there's a reason for that. You see, after his binding, and we discussed all these things if you're just joining us, he became so high that he was considered a dead man by God. In other words, his body was here, but his spirit was more there than it was here. He just saw the end-all be-all. The end-all be-all that on that day the Lord will be one and his name will be one. The way that it would happen and the events that would have to take place, especially concerning his household, may have seemed somewhat mundane in the grand scheme of things. In other words, he saw everything was going to be okay. Sure, there had to be some hardship, but he was constantly walking in the Garden of Eden. Again, this is just a thought. Next verse, 22, and the children struggled within her, and she said, if it be so, why am I like this? And she went to inquire of the Lord. ויתרוצצו הבנים בקרבה, ותאמר אם כן למה זה אנוכי, ותלך לדרוש את אדוני. So what was Rivka feeling here? Discomfort, maybe, probably. She was pregnant after all. But let's not forget we're talking about Rivka here, the daughter of Bethuel, the sister of Laban, from Padan Aram, the niece of Abraham, the wife of Isaac, and soon to be the mother of not one, but two great nations. So when she, on her own, went to inquire lidrosh, it almost means, lidrosh actually means to demand. Ani doresh, I demand an answer. She demanded an answer from God. And this is what it says in Hebrew. So now let's take this example and follow Rivka. Rivka saw and felt in her spirit the future and divide between her two sons. Yes, Esav was her son as well. We keep forgetting that. Esav was a patriarch. And he is significant. So look at that. A righteous man and woman. And they were both righteous men and women. They can give birth to a wicked son. But let me tell you something. Esav's life choices were his own, just like Jacob's choices were his own. Otherwise, it wouldn't count for anything. They each had an inclination, but that's just another trial to overcome. Why do you think it's such a big deal when a Gentile converts to Judaism? When one who is not born under the law willingly chooses to follow the law. That's why we all look at y'all like you're crazy. Like, you choose this? Okay, that's why it's got to come from you. This is truly what it means to be grafted into the house of Israel. Now, as we've been discussing since Genesis 1, we've learned that there is the seed of Abraham, right? We see Abraham already mentioned in Genesis, in Parashat Bereshit. Abraham had many children, and he sent them off. We discussed this over the last few weeks. Right? He had Ishmael, and then he had the 6 others from Keturah. Today in the world, there are hundreds of millions of the seed of Abraham all around the world today. And if they follow the 7 Noahide laws while recognizing the God of their father Abraham, they will be blessed. But don't forget, Abraham sent them away because the covenant exclusively continued through Isaac. Don't confuse the two over here. And then Isaac to Jacob, who then became Israel. So to say, sure, I'm part of Israel, you could join yourself with Israel, but you know how to do it. Jethro, who would be from the seed of Jethro was from the seed of Abraham. He still converted and became part of the house of Israel, and the covenants thereof in the book of Exodus. And what is this exclusive covenant that has exclusively been given to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? It's the Torah. I, as a Jew, I am commanded to follow the law of Moses as given by God to the best of my ability. And also, I have 2 jobs according to this law. 1, keep the law, right? Protect it, preserve it, be true to it, understand it, dwell in it, live it. And 2, teach the law. To Jews and to Gentiles, in other words, anyone who wants to learn Torah, I'm going to teach you Torah. I don't care who you are. It's not my Torah. It's God's Torah. I'm just the guardian of it. But when I see God's Torah being misused, becoming a propaganda piece, being twisted in order to serve some sick narrative, I get very, very angry. And trust me, you're better off dealing with my anger than with his anger. If I'm not doing these 2 things, I'm not fulfilling my calling as a Jew. light unto the nations, right? Show us how you do it. Okay. So why am I saying all this? Because our sages say that Esav had the potential to surpass Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, Aaron combined. Do not forget that Jacob and Esav were identical twins, yet complete opposites. Jacob was naturally pulled towards the spirit, while Esav was naturally pulled towards the flesh. Ultimately, we are born down here, but our journey is upward. Remember, heroes are made, they are not born. Just like later we see that Jacob was born, but Israel was formed. This is also from Isaiah. It's a process, it's a becoming, and it can only happen through trial. So because Esav had so much darkness in him, which was very specifically designed by God, his purpose was to overcome that darkness, making him extremely powerful, like the number one guy, if you will. That's the purpose of darkness. It's here for us to overcome and thereby ascend. So here is what it means to inquire of the Lord, because this is how it's done. And in about 7 months after the children struggled together within her, and it pained her greatly that she was weary on account of them. And she said to all the women who were then in the land, "Did such a thing happen to you as it has to me?" And they said unto her, "No." And she said unto them, "Why am I alone in this amongst all the women that were upon the earth?" And she went to the land of Moriah to seek the Lord on account of this. And she went, where'd she go? To Shem and Eber, his son, to make inquiries of them in this matter, and that they should seek the Lord in this thing respecting her. And she also asked Abraham to seek and inquire of the Lord about all that had befallen her. And they all inquired of the Lord concerning this matter. And they brought her word from the Lord and told her, 2 children are in thy womb, and nations shall rise from them. And one nation shall be stronger than the other, and the greater shall serve the younger. So again, just because you are an extremely spiritual person, you can have visions, you can have dreams, you can have things happen. You always go to the tzaddik, okay? Shem, as in the son of Noah, as in a pre-flood dude, and his son Aver, where Abraham, Isaac, and then Jacob would learn Torah. Abraham, who was already very familiar with Torah, you always go to the guy who knows how to, how should we say, right? You take the spirit, but then you have to focus it. The Torah is the focus of all this stuff. It's the explanation to all these things. So as high as she was, she needed an answer from an expert in the Torah. That's exactly what she did. That's why she was wise. It's not a matter of pride, I'll do it on my own. No, there's a way to do things. That's why she was Rivka. So they gave her the answer, and the greater shall serve the younger. Now, what does it say? And the Lord said to her, this is in our Parsha. I just read from Jasher, this is in our Parsha. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 kingdoms will separate from your innards, and one kingdom will become mightier than the other kingdom, and the elder will serve the younger. The greater will serve the younger, the elder, I don't know, it's the English translation. But in Hebrew it says, V'rav ya'avod tza'ir. So you see how beautifully the Midrash fills in those gaps? From one verse, we got 10 other verses over there. These 2 nations, according to our sages, invoke heaven and hell. She's about to give birth to the perpetual darkness, to Esav, whose guardian angel is the angel of death, Satan himself, Samael. Now, even though it translates that the elder will serve the younger, the Hebrew in the Torah is without punctuation and can also be read as V'rav ya'aved tza'ir, not ya'avod tza'ir, because there's no vav over there, it's just with a dot. The elder will enslave the younger. See the last 2,000 years of persecution by who? Edom, Rome, Esav. But it all makes sense, and we're about to see it right here. And the first one emerged ruddy. He was completely like a coat of hair, and they named him Esau, Esav. Vayetze harishon admoni kulo ke'aderet se'ar, vaykreu shmo Esav. It's a very interesting choice of words over here. As students of the Torah, we know that the nation of Edom, as we just discussed, the biblical nation of Edom, whose father is Esav, whose principality and power in the heavenly realm is Satan himself, is what is known today as Rome. Rome is Edom, but as long as Rome, Edom stands, Jacob, Israel cannot stand. But I'm not talking about the Pope. I'm not even talking about Catholicism, Christianity. It's all the same thing. This is just a false religion that was born out of paganism and sold to about 2 billion people in the world today. Look again. That religion has nothing to do with Torah. Please tell me if I'm wrong. It has nothing to do with Torah. And that's not even the baffling part of all this. Christianity has nothing to do with the New Testament, right? Christians, it's all about the New Testament. But if you read the New Testament and you look at Christianity, like, I don't see it. I don't see it. So, you see what I'm saying? And it's this corrupt chaos that lays claim to God's Torah, then dismisses it, that's causing all the chaos in the world today. This is the Western world. This is Western civilization. Again, you want proof? Look outside your window and let's have that feeling of dread, okay? Let's be real here. Let's have that feeling of dread come over us just for a minute as we see in which direction our world is headed. Right? Okay, now let's breathe it all in. Oh yeah, that sucks. Let's exhale and let it go. It's gone. It's gone. God has a plan. And this is all by design, so it's okay. There's a smile on my face. All right, see, there's a certain midrash that says that when King Solomon married the daughter of Pharaoh, given his people's history with Egypt and what it stood for, idolatry entered into his house at that point. That was like the beginning of his end, of his downfall. As a result, a certain angel planted the seed that would later become the Roman Empire. So when we read things like Vayetze harishon admoni, and the first emerged reddish or ruddy, you have to wonder, these are the 5 books of Moses, and there is no room for error. So this is what the sages say. Now, this is from Midrash Rabbah, okay? This is astounding. This just goes to show us how much we don't know. This same first, Harishon, the first that emerged, this same first is the one who is the first and the last, brought to us by Isaiah 44:6. So said the Lord, the King of Israel, as his Redeemer of the Lord of hosts, I am the first and I am the last, and besides me there is no God. That's the first. This is the first who will build the holy temple. Jeremiah 17:12. As a throne of glory exalted from the beginning, it says Marom Mereshit. The Hebrew says Kiseh Kavod, Marom Merishon, Makom Mikdashenu. So is the place of our sanctuary. Wait, there's more. This is the first who sits upon the first seat of glory and will bring you the first who is King Mashiach. And the first one of Zion, they are. Isaiah 41:27. The first one to Zion, behold them. And for Jerusalem I will give a herald. Who is this them? We'll see. It was always decreed that Esav would rule in the physical world, in here and now. And that's exactly what's happening. Again, look around. It's Western civilization taking over the world, and look at all the ramifications that come as a result. So he came first to this world. Jacob came next, as in for the next world. But then there was a connection between the two, right? This is what I'm talking about. And afterwards, his brother emerged, and his hand was grasping Esav's heel, and he named him Jacob. Now, Isaac was 60 years old when she gave birth to them. Va'acharei chen, and afterwards. After what? After this world is done, that Esav is ruling, and who is Esav's angel? Angel of death, of darkness, who is currently ruling this world, as we see. Acharechen, after this world is done, there will be Jacob, who is going to emerge. After this world of flesh has been dealt with, but before that, Jacob is going to be persecuted. Lamentations chapter 4 nails it. If you don't know it, you should familiarize yourself with this. This is beautiful. I'm reading from verse 17 right now. Lamentations 4:17. Our eyes still strained for our futile help. In our expectations, we hoped for a nation that could not save us. This is when the Jews were being persecuted before the destruction of the Second Temple. A nation would not save them, because no nation can save them. It's not in the cards. It's not what's written. They dogged our steps and prevented us from walking in the streets. Our end drew near, our days were fulfilled, for our end had come. Remember, God never destroys his people, always brings them to the brink. Why? In order for them to do tshuva. Our pursuers were swifter than the eagles of the heavens. They chased us on the mountains. They lay in wait for us in the wilderness. And all of this, again, is because God allowed it. Now listen to this. Lamentations 4:20. Ruach apenu, Mashiach Adonai, nilkad b'shchitutam, asher amarnu betzilo nichya bagoyim. The breath of our nostrils, the Lord's anointed, the Mashiach, was captured in their pits. Whose pits? Who's they? We'll see that too. Of whom we had said, under his protection we shall live among the nations. The breath of our nostrils is the Lord's anointed, as in the breath of God that he breathed into Adam, that breath is Mashiach. That's why I'm saying, if you call Mashiach, you say Mashiach is a man and only a man. No, Mashiach is more than a man. It's a spirit, it's a consciousness, it's a collectivity. It's so much more. Y'all have no idea, just keep learning. Rejoice and be glad, O daughter of Edom, who dwells in the land of Uz. It's Edom. Who's Edom? Esav, Rome, Western world. Upon you also shall the cup pass. You shall become drunk and vomit. Who is the cup passing from? It's passing from Israel. The punishment of your iniquity is complete, O daughter of Zion. That's it. When Israel is done being persecuted, it now goes over to where? To Esav. He will no longer send you into exile. But your iniquity, O daughter of Edom, he shall punish. He will reveal your sins. How will he reveal your sins? Because at the end of days, once the veil is lifted, and you're going to have 2 billion Christians saying, oh, we know God, and the Torah is useless, it's done away with, they're all going to be proven wrong. He will reveal your sins, as in the sins that you are doing currently. Many, many, many will be put to shame. And this is when the power that Edom possesses in the world today will come to Jacob, to Israel. And God will make them submit, so they will come willingly. And so we see as Esav grew up, he excelled in the flesh, in the physical, in the world. So when it says in verse 27, and the youths grew up, and Esav was a man who knew hunting, a man of the field, whereas Jacob was an innocent man dwelling in tents. Vayigdalu hane'arim vayehi Esav ish yodea tzayid, ish sadeh, veYaakov ish tam yoshev oalim. Esav knew the physical intimately, ladat. Adam knew his wife, right? Esav knew the physical, the field. Hunting, to know one's wife, to be intimate, you get it. The chase, the insatiable hunger for blood, that's what he was all about. He killed for sport, which is straight up evil. Oh yeah, and this topic is discussed among the sages actually. There's a very stringent laws against how you treat animals. Shooting a lion with a high-powered rifle from a distance, that's just, that's cowardice. Go fight a lion barehanded. See how that works out. That'll impress me. Anyway, bottom line is, it's savagery, it's unethical, it's immoral, it's cruel. Oh, or in other words, it's Esav. Any big game hunters out there? Listen up. Anything that we can find in common with darkness incarnate in the Bible is probably not the best thing to be associated with. Just saying. Anyway, the twins are 15 years old at this point. We forget that. Again, they're twins, identical twins. So they were 15 right here, 15 years later. And Esav chose his path, the world, and Jacob chose his, the Torah. This is also, excuse me, this is also the year that Abraham would pass. As we discussed, God had mercy on him that he should not see Esav's decline. And in fact, I just want to read here from the book of Joshua. This is the Hebrew book. And it says, וגם כל הילדים הקטנים וכל יושבי הארץ בכו כולם על אברהם, and all the children, the small children of the land, and all the inhabitants of the land, the entire world were mourning over Abraham, I think for a year, it says. It says, Ki haya Avraham tov im kulam, for Abraham was good with everyone. V'chi haya yashar, and he was upright and straight, im Elohim, with God, ve'im anashim. Abraham was good with everyone. He was chesed. He would give unconditionally, no matter who you are, no matter what you did. That's what he did. And then it says, Velo kam od yireh Elohim. Velo kam od, that's what we get in the book of Deuteronomy. Velo kam od navi kemoshe. And a prophet like Moses would never arise. Same wording here regarding Abraham. Yireh Elohim ka Avraham. One who revered God as Abraham. Asher yireh et Elohim mineurav. That revered God from his youth. Remember, he was a kid. Vayavod et Adonai vaylech bechol drachav, and he was at the Lord's service. He was a servant of the Lord, and he walked in his ways throughout his entire life. Anyway, it's a beautiful eulogy going on here for Abraham, but that's not the focus of the teaching. Nevertheless, that's what happened when he died. Now we're going back to the verse. And Jacob was an innocent man dwelling in tents. How many tents does one need to dwell in? There are several explanations for this one. There's a tent below, and then there's a tent tent above. While brother Esav was busy living it up and taking advantage of everything this world had to offer, brother Jacob was busy bringing in the kingdom of heaven. Yeshiva shel mala, yeshiva shel mata. This is part of the Kol Nidrei prayer. This is the opening prayer of Yom Kippur. We recognize both realms. We say, yes, there's a Yeshiva Shel Mala and Yeshiva Shel Mata, and we need them both. They're both important, and they are both significant, okay? A lot of organizations out there, they're all about the Spirit. I'm living in the Spirit. No, you're not. And if you are, you're seriously lacking. Seriously. You can't only be here, and you can't only be there. You have to command them both. So, Jacob may have been sitting in a tent here on earth, very specifically what tent? The tent of Shem and Eber, Noah's son and grandson, learning and teaching Torah, knowing the Lord, all the while he was shaping the heavenly realms. Also, let us not forget the prophecy of Bilam in Parashat Balak. We've gotten to it, we'll get to it. The prayer that we say every morning. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov mishkenotecha Israel. How good are your tents, plural, O Jacob, your dwelling places, Israel. Brief explanation on this. Tents are temporary, symbolizing the two temples built by man that would be destroyed. But Mishkenotecha, the dwelling place, O Israel, that is permanent, symbolizing the building of the third temple by Mashiach ben David. Also ask yourself, every single time you see Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob who dwelt in the land of Israel, they were all dwelling in tents. They never built any structures. Why? Because they knew it was temporary. They knew that ultimately they would have to go to Egypt. But when they came back and they inhabited the land, that's when they started building cities. Okay, makes sense. This isn't the practical thing. Just gave you the spirit, now the flesh. So if you missed what has been happening here, Esav was not doing his job. And so Jacob had to take over. So back to the story. 28. And Isaac loved Esau, Esav, because his game was in his mouth. Yeah. But Rebekah loved Jacob. So remember how we discussed that Rivka went to seek the Lord because of what was going on inside of her? Usually there's a harmony, there's a bond between twins. In this case, there was chaos. They were complete opposites. There was, the light and the dark inhabiting the same space. That can't happen. There's got to be a separation, just like God did in the beginning of the world. Inside this woman, this is all taking place. So she felt that. And while they were still inside her, there were battles raging in the heavens between light and dark as far as what's going to happen. I believe that God showed her exactly what was going to happen. And so this is why it happened this way. Rivka was watching God's word unfold before her very eyes. So here we have a spiritual titan, a woman of God, a mother, a matriarch. What does she see? She sees everything. And how do we know this? Well, let's find out. If we've learned anything from God, we know that his word is true. He lives according to his word because God and his word are one, right? God governs according to his word, according to the laws that he created in this universe and this world. He is them, is what I'm saying. Now, we also know that the elder son goes the inheritance, right? So given that God told Rivka that the older will serve the younger, we can understand that something had to take place that was legally binding according to God's word in order for this to happen, according to the laws that God had established that this would happen. And God's word had to be made manifest in order for that to happen, for God is no man that he should lie. Everything is predestined. No different here. 29. Now Jacob cooked a pottage, and Esav came from the field, and he was faint. Hu ayef. The stew was already cooking when Esav was walking in. And Esav said to Jacob, pour into me some of this red pottage, for I am faint. He was therefore named Edom. Listen to the Hebrew. Vayomer Esav el Yaakov, haleiteni na min ha'adom hazeh ki ayef anochi al ken kara shmo Edom. That's why it's called Edom, for the Adom, but also red type of appearance. And Jacob said, sell me, as of this day, your birthright. Now, do you think that Rivka was the only one who knew what was going on or what needed to happen? Jacob was Rivka's son, and Rivka loved Jacob. They had conversations. He saw the opportunity, and he seized it. You see, the job of the righteous is to help God do a course correction. That's why the righteous are in this world, because they know what God said, and they do in order to make it happen. That's right, people. We assist God. The moment that God has no use for you and everything was done for you, that's when you get to be afraid. Okay? All right. So, we are all given these courses by design and for that very purpose. Esav replied, behold, I'm going to die. So why do I need this birthright? Vayomer Esav hine anochi olech lamut velama zeh li habchora. Why did he say he was going to die? I'm going to tell you another story right now. Just before he entered into the tent, he was hunting in the field. And who should suddenly come along? Let's see what the book of Jasher has to say. And Esau at the time, after the death of Abraham, frequently went into the field to hunt. And Nimrod, king of Babel, aka Amarphel, also frequently went with his mighty men to hunt in the field, and to walk about with his men in the cool of the day. And Nimrod was observing Esau all the days, for jealousy was formed in the heart of Nimrod against Esau all the days. And on a certain day Esau went in the field to hunt, and he found Nimrod walking in the wilderness with his 2 men. And all his mighty men and his people were with him in the wilderness, but they were removed at a distance from him. So it's just Nimrod and his 2 imperial guards, if you will, his 2 elite guards. And they went from him in different directions to hunt. And Esau concealed himself for Nimrod, and he lurked for him in the wilderness. By the way, this is also end time stuff. And Nimrod and his men that were with him did not know him, and Nimrod and his men frequently walked about in the field at the cool of the day, and to know where his men were hunting in the field. And Nimrod and the 2 of his men that were with him came to the place where they were when Esav started suddenly from his lurking place and drew his sword and hastened and ran to Nimrod and cut his head off. Maybe it was like this. Who knows? Like this or like this. But either way. And Esav fought a desperate fight with the two men that were with Nimrod. And when they called out to him, Esav turned to them and smote them to death with his sword. Esav is 15 years old. Okay? Nimrod was the mighty hunter of God. Do you recall? With the clothing, the garments of skin and everything. So now he was still wearing garments of skin, but Esav, the son of Isaac, the son of Abraham, smote him. And that's why there was a jealousy between Nimrod and the descendants of Abraham over there. He's like, how could he possibly be a mightier hunter than me? And Nimrod was like the worst guy in the whole Bible. So what does that say about Esav? But again, he too shall be redeemed. And all the mighty men of Nimrod who had left him to go to the wilderness heard the cry at a distance, and they knew the voices of those two men. And they ran to know the cause of it. And when they found their king and the two men that were with him lying dead in the wilderness, and Esav saw the mighty men of Nimrod coming at a distance, he fled and thereby escaped. And Esau took the valuable garments of Nimrod, which Nimrod's father had bequeathed to Nimrod, and with which Nimrod prevailed over the whole land. And he ran and concealed them in his house. So yes, these are the same garments that God had made for Adam and Eve. And we discussed this in Parashat Noach and Lech Lecha, I believe. And Esau took those garments and ran to the city on account of Nimrod's men, and he came into his father's house, into Isaac's tent, wearied and exhausted from fight. And he was ready to die through grief when he approached his brother Jacob and sat before him. And he said unto his brother Jacob, Behold, I shall die this day. And wherefore then do I want my birthright? And Jacob acted wisely with Esau in this matter. And Esau sold his birthright to Jacob, for it was so brought about by the Lord. Now we know who's responsible. And Esau's portion in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham had brought from the children of Heth for the possession of a burial ground, Esau also sold to Jacob. And Jacob brought all this from his brother Esau for value given. Now, listen up. And Jacob wrote the whole of this in a book, and he testified the same with witnesses, and he sealed it, and the book remained in the hands of Jacob. I would love to get my hands on that book. It's probably in the Vatican somewhere. So first of all, I just like to point out that Jacob acted wisely and cautiously, just like his grandfather Abraham did when he purchased the cave of Machpelah. The contract, witnesses, all this stuff. All right? So you got an exchange, the documents, the witnesses, and so now, as bound in earth, so it is bound in heaven, the house of Jacob is born. This is that event that Rivka was waiting for. So now this legally happened. Isaac just had to seal the deal by solidifying the blessing. On earth it already happened according to the laws of man, right? Document, signature, contract, we're done. Now the laws of God, the blessing that has to come through Isaac. Now here's the spiritual sense. So he took that. Anyway, so can we even begin to comprehend all the events that had to have taken place in order for all this to go down the way it did? And this goes back way beyond that day, of course. Nimrod tried to kill Abraham 2 times. Okay, and now, just like in Nimrod's dream, Abraham's seed, his grandson, killed him. Prophecy fulfilled. So we're going to have to skip over chapter 26 for time's sake. Long story short, I'm going to give you what the breakdown here. Isaac was going to go to Egypt because there was famine in the land, just like his father Abraham did. But God stopped him. He said, no, you stay here. God told him not to leave Israel, and he would remain there for the rest of his life. Now, it is my opinion as to why. I'm giving this, okay, if I may, because we discussed Isaac as being like a walking dead man. He was in a way resurrected from the dead, and he was given a new body in this world. Like I said, most of his consciousness and spirit was already there, thereby tying him to the land of Israel. Now, in the end of days, during the time of the resurrection of the dead, Only the bodies that are buried in Israel will be resurrected. And all the bodies of the righteous Jews who perished throughout the world, wherever they may be, will miraculously be transported to Israel in order to be resurrected. I gave this teaching one time. It was regarding the luz bone. It's called L-U-Z. It's a place either in the upper part of the spine, the lower part of the spine. It's indestructible, supposedly, and then you have Ezekiel's prophecy of the valley of the dry bones. They're also actually supposed to come from the luz bone, which means you can't burn it, you can't disintegrate it, you can't break it. So the luz bones of all the people of God, wherever they may be, throughout the entire world, in the history of the world, are spread across, but they will miraculously come to Israel because this is where the resurrection is going to happen. That's why the Mount of Olives has it's a Jewish cemetery over there, because those are going to be the first ones when Mashiach said in Zechariah, Mashiach's feet are going to hit on the Mount of Olives, and then, it's just like from, I don't want to mention that show, but Game of Thrones, where he raises the dead, kind of like that, in a sense. In any case, that's why they're buried there. It's a great honor to be buried there. So, just a theory, just a thought, moving to chapter 27. 27:1. It came to pass, when Isaac was old, and his eyes were too dim to see, that he called Esav his elder son, and he said to him, my son. And he said to him, here I am. Vayomer hineni. His eyes were dim to see. His vision was removed from him, both in the physical and in the spiritual, for several reasons. It was a mercy towards Isaac that he should not see how wicked his son Esav has become. He was not able to see in the physical as well in order for the upcoming events to transpire. And he saw the end of all things, which we will discuss in about 2 weeks' time. So put a pin in that. So Isaac tells Esav to go out and to hunt for him because he's going to bless him before he dies. Even though Isaac doesn't die immediately, it's actually quite some time. Nevertheless, it's time to pass along the blessing. So at this moment, Esav this is what he was waiting for his entire life, to inherit the land, right? God promised Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Israel. You got the Torah, you get the land, because the Torah needs to be fulfilled where? In the land of Israel. They're one and the same. So, you see, he didn't really understand that it was more than just in the physical land, but that's all he saw. That's all Esav saw. Just, hey, I got stuff, physical stuff here. So during this same time, through divine appointment, verse 5, but Rebekah overheard when Isaac spoke to Esav, his son, and Esav went to the field to go hunt, to bring it. Bring it what? To bring the game. So that's where this big buck comes in. It was no coincidence, because just like this was the moment that Esav was waiting for his entire life, this was also the moment that Rivka was dreading her entire life. Sorry, their entire lives, rather. See, the doomsday clock is now 5 minutes to midnight. Did she know exactly what was going to happen, or how things were going to turn out in a minute-by-minute play-by-play? Of course not. But just like Moses received all the Torah on Mount Sinai, and then afterwards, in the texts, he receives an understanding to the words that he already heard, so does Rivka receive understanding to the words that God spoke to her at the beginning of this portion. She was like a lioness jumping into action without hesitation, being able to act and defend her cub simultaneously. And Rebekah said to Jacob, her son, no hesitation, next verse. And now, my son, hearken to my voice, to what I am commanding you. Ve'ata b'ni shma b'kuli, la'asher ani metzava otcha. Did she say please? Did she ask nicely? No. The lioness of God just commanded her young to do what she says, and do it now. Ani metzava otcha, I am commanding you, she says. Jacob didn't even argue with her. There was no protest to what would seem like a mass deception. The dude knew his mother. Jacob knew his mother. That she was a righteous, godly woman, and he believed her. Just like Isaac knew his father, who was a righteous man, and he believed him. Verse 15. And Rebekah took the garments of Esav. Which garments do you think she took? Who was her older son, which were with her in the house, and she dressed Jacob, her younger son. Jacob is now wearing the same garments of skin that God made for Adam and Eve. Now listen up to what I'm about to say. From the outside, this whole thing, to those who do not have eyes to see, ears to hear, or a heart to understand, it would seem that the man standing before you is Esav, Edom, who is evil, with all the garments, right? When in fact, it was the man whose face was one of the four heavenly beings beneath the throne of God. On the Merkavah, read Ezekiel 1. Another point to look at is that if Rivka was willing to take the curses upon herself from Jacob, don't worry, it's on me. In other words, I will take anything bad that comes from this, it is on me. So Jacob drew near to Isaac his father, and he felt him, and he said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. Vayigash Yaakov el Yitzchak aviv vayimeshehu, he felt. Vayomer hakol kol Yaakov vayadayim yedei Esav. In the physical, you'll never see it, but listen to the voice and hear the words. There are things in this world that we do not understand. Nevertheless, if we call ourselves believers in God and in the Torah, then we must know He makes no mistakes, and everything is predestined from creation. And everything will come to pass exactly how it is supposed to. Once you have this point in mind, then and only then can you begin to understand His will and His way. The truth? If you want the truth, you're going to have to let yourself go completely. And he came closer, and he kissed him, and he smelled the fragrance of his garments. And he blessed him, and he said, behold, the fragrance of my son is like the fragrance of a field, which the Lord has blessed. You see where I'm going with this? ויגש וישק לו וירח את ריח בגדיו ויברכהו ויאמר ראה ריח בני כריח שדה אשר ברכו אדוני, which the Lord has blessed, like God blessed this field. The fragrance of the field that Isaac smelled was the Garden of Eden. Jacob smelled like heaven. Isaac was familiar with this smell, since when he met Rivka, he too was walking in the field. That was the same field. Furthermore, our sense of smell is the strongest of all the senses, and it directly ties to memory. But also, if you think about it, Jacob, the reason that it said that he felt and he smelt, it was inside and outside, because it was worn by Adam and Eve, who came from the Garden of Eden. So that was the scent, if you will, the heavenly scent emanating from them. Yet Jacob had that from the inside as well. How do you get that without these magical clothings? Torah. There you go. Seed of Abraham. See Esav killing Nimrod, the mighty warrior of God, just because of his birthright. When Mashiach comes, it is said that he will smell a person. We discussed this, but again, it's relevant. And by the scent, he will call out those. He's going to call everybody out. Not by how we look on the outside, because on the outside, we may all look like Esav. But on the inside, do we smell like Jacob? Look at this chaos going on here right now. So we know that something's got to happen, don't we? The clock was now 2 minutes to midnight. Needless to say that when Esau found out what happened, he was not happy. And Esau hated Jacob. Vayistom Esav et Yaakov al habracha asher b'cho aviv, because of the blessing that his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, let the days of mourning for my father draw near. I will then kill my brother Jacob. In other words, after Isaac dies, then I'll do it. Because it said one of the ma'alot, one of the attributes of Esav, is that he had a tremendous amount of kabedat avicha ve'timecha, the respecting and honoring thy father and thy mother. Esav was considered one of the top in the Torah, believe it or not. So, obviously, he kept all this to himself because he really wanted it to happen. Now, in between these two verses, 14 years pass. That's 14 years that Jacob fled to the house of Ever, the son of Shem, the son of Noah, and he hid there in fear of Esav. And in the meantime, Esav forgot all about what Jacob had done, and he was okay. But Jacob missed his father and mother, so he returned again to see them 14 years later. When he came back, the anger of Esau was aroused once again to kill his brother Jacob. And that's where we continue in the Parsha. Again, verse 41, this happened in between 14 years, and now verse 42. And Rebekah was told of the words of Esau. It clearly says he thought it to himself back then and then again, her elder son, and she went and called Jacob her younger son. And she said to him, behold, your brother Esau regrets his relationship with you and wishes to kill you. Vayugad Rivka. Et divrei Esav bena gadol. Esau never spoke anything. So who told Rebekah about this plan? Yugad Rivka. That's right. It was God. El Shaddai, the guardian of the doors of Israel, the angel who redeems, the Shekhinah. At this point, we must understand that she is devastated, heartbroken, and even the mere fact that she could function is a miracle within itself. How do we know this? The text makes sure to mention that Esau was her son, as well as Jacob, every single time in this context. She was Esau's mother. Her eldest son was going to kill her youngest son. That would be devastating to any mother. Listen again. And Rebekah was told of the words of Esau, her elder son. It says it there on purpose, so you should understand the gravity of what we are reading. The time is now 1 minute to midnight. And now, my son, hearken to my voice, and arise, flee to my brother Laban, to Haran. And you shall dwell with him for a few days, until your brother's wrath has subsided. It was more than a few days, obviously. Until your brother's rage subsides for you, and he forgets what you did to him. And I will send and bring you from there. Why should I be bereaved of both of you on one day? So, both of you. If Esau kills Yaakov, why should she mourn them both? Her children were her world. If Jacob would die at the hands of Esau, the world would have no future, and surely God would seek vengeance upon Esau. Hear me now, okay? Jacob and Esau are needed in order to complete our redemption. Rivka was tasked with separating light from dark, although they both came from the same source, just like how the light and dark both came from the same source, from God. You understand just how close Rivka was to God right now? She could hear everything. This was a very, very strong bonding moment for them. Do you understand how God shared his experience with her from creation? Creation, light, dark, separation, birth, light, dark, separation. This was a very, very special relationship. Rivka knew this day was coming from before her sons were born. She would witness the descending of one and the ascending of another. Hear my words, I chose them carefully, and they are not my own. She witnessed the descending and ascending. The descending and ascending. You hear me? That's all I'm going to say. This is the day she dreaded above all days. But she knew it was the will of God, and without flinching, she sprang into action. Just like Abraham. She sent away her beloved son Jacob to a dangerous land, to Padan Aram, right? To the house of her wicked idolatrous father, Bethuel, and her evil black magic conjuring swindling brother, Lavan. She sent him there. She sent the future of God's people into a pit of evil, the one that she came out of. She had no choice. It was either that or Jacob would be murdered by his brother, Cain and Abel style. The heavens and earth would come apart if the blood of Jacob would have been spilled. And so we close with chapter 28. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him, and he commanded him and said, you shall not take a wife of the daughters of Canaan. Arise, go to Padan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take for yourself a wife from the daughters of Lavan, your mother's brother. Why does it say your mother's father, your mother's brother? Because remember, she came from there. She didn't turn out too bad. El Shaddai bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, and you should become an assembly of peoples. And may he give you the blessing of Abraham to you and to your seed with you, that you may inherit the land of your sojourning, which God gave to Abraham. Now, why does it say, in the Hebrew actually, it says, Padana Aram, kum lech Padana Aram, not Padan Aram, Padana Aram. Why is the hay over there? Because God was already waiting for him there, just like Mitzrayma, Sodoma, because God has a purpose there. And this was a comfort to his mother that she heard her husband Isaac speak these words, because God can be found anywhere, even in the pits of Edom, if he has a purpose over there. And Isaac sent Jacob, and he went to Padan Aram to Lavan, the son of Bethuel the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, the mother of Jacob and Esau. Here we go. One big happy dysfunctional family. We need to read this portion again. From all the players and the significant stories and events that took place over here, the hero was not Isaac, not Esau, and not even Jacob. The glue, the hands, the one who was working to make sure God's word would stand true ultimately for his name's sake, is the true hero of this story, the silent hero no more. And her name is Rivka. She is the daughter of Bethuel the Aramite. She's a sister of Lavan, the niece of Abraham, the wife of Isaac, the mother of Esau and Yaakov, and she is the savior of the world. When we look at our lives and we think that we're not making a difference, even when we try, I say, no, shut your mouth. Now go smack yourself upside the head. Everything you do is significant. What? Because you're not splitting the sea or raining down fire from the heavens? That, tiny little drop of faith, that faith of a mustard seed, I think we missed that point. Just one act of kindness by faith will move mountains and shape the heavens. Reach one person and do it today. Do not delay. Today is actually Rosh Chodesh, on Thursday. You don't have to save them. You can't save them. You can't save anyone, let alone yourself. That's his job. You can only do the best that you can do. But be his daughter, be his son, and show kindness and gentleness towards your fellow man. Not just one who sees eye to eye with you. We breathe the same breath. We have the same life source. We're all mothers and brothers and daughters and fathers until the very end. We have the power and responsibility to spread God's love through this world. So I say to you, know who you are, whoever you are. Know where you come from, and everything is going to fall into place. May his perfect will be done. It is now 30 seconds to midnight, and Rivka Imenu just saved the world. So, my friends, thank you as always so much for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Have a Chodesh Tov and have a Shabbat Shalom. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.